50 has just released explosive new footage that's tearing through the internet, revealing a rattled, high-pressure side of Diddy that no one expected to see. For years, whispers painted him as steady, untouchable, even quietly in control. But this clip shatters that image instantly. What it shows instead is mounting stress, visible tension, and an environment filled with people who don't seem trustworthy. Fresh reports now suggest that old rivalries and unresolved issues may be closing in, turning his situation into something far more serious and unpredictable than anyone anticipated.
Life might be danger over here because people think that he has something to do with Pac, people think he has something to do with Biggie, and they right here in Brooklyn. You understand? It's right here in Brooklyn, and some of the people are still mad that he made making of the band walk to Brooklyn from, to get the cheesecake, and just around the corner from the Cheesecake Factory. So, Juniors. So it might be some dumb So y'all need to get him out of here and ship him to Jersey because somebody gonna kill him over here. Those are good arguments, if you want to call it, but it's bullshit. He gonna get the same treatment no matter how much money he got.
For decades, the loss of Tupac Shakur and Christopher, the notorious B.I.G. Wallace, has cast a heavy, unshakable shadow over hip-hop, a chapter that time has never fully closed. Through every wave of rumors and renewed debate, Diddy has repeatedly and firmly rejected any connection to either event, holding his stance as questions continue to resurface and speculation refuses to disappear.
The documentary that claimed, which we know wasn't true.
Yeah, check this out. We don't talk about things that are nonsense. We don't even entertain nonsense, my brother. So we're not even going to go there, with all due respect, but I appreciate you as a journalist asking. Thank you.
Because listen, 7 years ago, I'd have been like, yo, did you hire somebody to fuck? But no, you do it like a journalist.
Yeah, no, I mean, we wouldn't even get into nonsense like that. You know what I'm saying? It's nonsense.
Which we never believed, by the way.
Tupac Shakur was fatally shot in a drive-by attack in Las Vegas on September 7, 1996, surviving for 6 days before passing at just 25, and only 6 months later Christopher, the notorious B.I.G. Wallace, lost his life in a strikingly similar incident in Los Angeles, erasing two icons back-to-back during one of hip-hop's most fractured periods. That fracture, known as the East Coast-West Coast rivalry, ran far deeper than music, driven by pride, loyalty, and years of simmering tension, with Diddy firmly aligned on the East Coast as Biggie's close friend, producer, and the force behind Bad Boy Records. As time passed, Diddy's name continued to surface in conversations around both losses, a debate reignited by the Netflix documentary Sean Combs' The Reckoning, which introduced claims pointing to deeper connections. Voices in the series traced the strain between Diddy and Tupac to November 30, 1994, when Tupac was robbed and shot at Quad Studios in New York while visiting to work with a Bad Boy artist, an incident that shattered trust and ignited years of accusations, controversy, and unresolved questions. The incident was never officially cleared, but Gene Deal has long maintained that Diddy had advance awareness that something serious was about to unfold and chose not to step in, a point he says was notably absent from the 50 Cent documentary. According to his account, that same day placed Diddy, Andre Harrell, and Jimmy Henchman together in Jimmy's office, a meeting he insists was deliberate and known to key people at the time. He argues Diddy was closely tracking Biggie's work because he oversaw the publishing and wanted full visibility into the music being made, positioning himself in the building to observe rather than participate. Gene further claims that during this discussion, Jimmy Henchman suggested Tupac would be sent a message tied to a financial dispute, an allegation that continues to intensify debate and leave that day surrounded by controversy and unanswered questions.
Being there to spy on Big, Jimmy Henchman told him that they finna teach Pac a lesson. Cause Pac had owed him some money. So that's why he was up in the studio and was coming to the studio. Pac owed him some money. He was gonna work it off and get some money from doing a song with Lil Sean. And that's what that was about. But Pac was talking greasy to Jimmy Henchman, and Jimmy Henchman wasn't the type of dude that you talk greasy to, allegedly. Unless you're 50 Cent.
So Diddy knew what was going to happen to Pac.
He knew Pac was about to deal well, yeah. He was there to see it. He was there to see it. He wasn't only there to see Big them when Jimmy Henchman told him that. He was there to see what's going to happen to Pac. He was there for that. Because had he not been there for that, he would have went up there in the office. He would have went to the studio or the studio session with Big them. He would have went to that studio session with Big them. He knew what room Big them was in. He didn't do that. He was there to see what was going to happen to Pac after Jimmy told him. And that's fact.
Gene says this lines up with what Kirk Burroughs has hinted at for years, that Diddy's influence extended quietly behind the scenes in ways the public never witnessed. He adds that if money factored into any part of what unfolded, Kirk would be uniquely positioned to understand how financial backing moved and where it originated, a perspective that gives these statements added weight. Together, those long-standing assertions continue to sharpen the debate, making the questions harder to dismiss and the silence around that era even louder.
Kirk Burroughs, he also said that, he feels like, Diddy was behind Pac murder.
Yeah. If Diddy played a part in that stuff, like he said, Kirk know where the money came from. I'm going to say this. They tried to, if you talk about the Vegas trip and the whole 9 yards, Kirk said that he paid for people to drive out to Vegas. You know what I'm saying? He said he paid for people to drive out of Vegas. I was heavily with Bad Boy at that time. I don't remember that part of it. You understand? I don't remember that part of it. But if Kirk knew and he was paying for people to drive out to Vegas in the whole 9 yards, it's hard to hide $1 million, brother. You ain't going to cash that in the check cashing place. You signing that over to somebody. I said 1,000 times, and I'll say it 1,000 times again. Eric Von Zip showed me and my man Boondang, aka my man Slick, a check for $1 million. We don't know, and everybody trying to say, lying, talking about half of it got paid, 500. I don't know. I know when I asked him about, we asked him, do we ask? No, we didn't ask him. I know when he showed us a check and he walked away after he showed us the check for the $1 million.
Gene maintains that even though many central figures are gone, financial trails don't disappear, and he believes the real answers may be buried in records, transfers, and transactions that can still be followed. Nearly 2 years after the Quad Studios incident, Tupac was killed in Las Vegas, a case that stayed unresolved for decades and fueled non-stop speculation across hip-hop until September 2023, when Dwayne "Keith D." Davis was arrested and charged, with prosecutors alleging he played a key role. Scrutiny intensified again in July 2024 after court filings revealed a previously undisclosed 2009 interview in which Davis reportedly spoke about the case and repeatedly mentioned Diddy, claiming he acted under external influence. Additional law enforcement summaries also reference earlier interviews where Davis allegedly described heated disputes and the mention of financial motives, adding yet another layer to a case that continues to provoke serious questions and renewed examination.
Was an informant in 1997 who told investigators that Puffy had hired the Southside Crips to kill both Suge and Tupac, and that the Crip who was jumped at the MGM was in the group that had done the hit, and that they originally were going to do it at Suge's Vegas nightclub, but then decided to do it right away instead of waiting. This was exactly the same story that Keefe D told us a decade later. Very few people know that immediately after Tupac is shot and that white Cadillac is fleeing, one of the death row entourage, a guy named Alton McDonald, known as Buntree, chases after the Cadillac, and a second shooting takes place between the two vehicles. Alton McDonald's car is struck. In fact, within the Las Vegas files, there's a document that indicates that Alton McDonald's car had been struck by a bullet. That
said that, like, in retrospect, that was probably the best thing that could have ever happened to Puffy. By Zip stealing the money, now Puffy isn't connected to that shit. Or else it would have been like a hire or something, you know what I'm saying?
The FBI said it was just Zip.
So the FBI told you the
he
same
was
thing.
a dirty motherfucker.
So the FBI told you that Zip kept that money as
They
well.
said Zip's a dirty motherfucker. Everybody crossed you. You're the last one to know every fucking thing. Even lawyers, your friends.
Diddy has consistently rejected every allegation, and in July 2024 the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police confirmed that Sean Combs has never been named a suspect in Tupac Shakur's homicide investigation and has never faced charges, while Dwayne Keefe D. Davis has pleaded not guilty and remains in custody as his case continues through repeated delays. Even so, reports suggest that tension stayed high after Tupac's death, with warnings circulating about avoiding the West Coast, yet Diddy pressed forward with plans to promote Biggie's upcoming album. According to claims echoed in Sean Combs' The Reckoning, Biggie was reportedly uneasy about traveling but was ultimately convinced to proceed, a choice that, viewed in hindsight, has become one of the most unsettling decisions tied to that turbulent era.
In the interview that Puffy did with Fat Joe where he was talking about Biggie in his last moments in LA, and he told Fat Joe that he didn't want to go to LA, he actually wanted to go to London, but Biggie, he was the one that wanted to go to LA, and he was the one that was pushing to go to LA.
That's not true. My name is Kirk Burrows. I ran Bad Boy Entertainment. I helped co-found it. I created the company with him. I raised from general manager to president. And at that time, I put all of those business plans together. And Biggie didn't want to go to LA, ended up going. What got him out there was a week ahead of time to ease him into the whole award show. He may not have wanted to go to London, but was talked into it. First time ever, a rapper of your stature getting this treatment. That would be something he would be interested in doing. But he was easily talked out of it by Sean so that they can make an appearance at an event in LA that Saturday night. A part of the posturing of not only did we come to the award show, not only am I recording my album out here, and Big is going to help me with some of the writing and maybe do something out here where me and him did this song in LA. I'm out on the town.
Gene Deal says this aligns with what he later learned from Clark Kent, a close associate of Biggie who worked in the industry and openly questioned why Biggie was even out that night. According to Clark, Biggie was meant to be traveling, not making appearances, and when he asked why they were heading to the Peterson Museum, Biggie told him the stop had been arranged by Puffy and another person. Gene says he was unaware of this detail at the time and only learned about it years later when Clark spoke publicly, adding yet another unsettling layer to a timeline that continues to provoke serious questions.
Going out to no party, no clubs, and no hip-hop scene. They wasn't doing none of that, brother. But that one particular night they go out, and it was because of Puff and D-Rock. Clark Kent said that shit himself. I've been saying it for years, but everybody was saying, I'm capping. Nah. What do you call Clark Kent? Is he capping? He's a vice president of a record company. You understand what I'm saying? He was DJing for Big. Is he capping? All these people should smack themselves, brother. Because what happened is, when people hear the truth, they can't believe it. Why? They can't understand it. But it happened. We couldn't have done nothing because it was no we. It was no we out there. Big had a security, Paul Alford, Reggie Bullock, Puff had me and Kenny. We was down 6 to 8 other men. And it's 23 people in the entourage. And none of them got no guns. You don't go Cali empty-handed. We couldn't.
What weighs on Gene Deal most is that he personally urged for stronger security before they stepped out, saying he sensed danger and pushed the issue more than once, only to be dismissed and told it wasn't needed. According to Gene, the refusal was explained away with claims that there wasn't enough budget to increase protection, a justification that has never sat right with him. That decision, made at a critical moment, continues to haunt him and adds to the long list of unresolved questions surrounding choices that, in hindsight, feel deeply troubling.
Still want to know about them. They should have had better security. I asked them before we gonna go out? Let's hire some more security. They refused to hire more security. Kirk Burrows said the same thing. They didn't have it in the budget. Not without Big, they don't have no budget.
Detective Greg Kading later said that, from his perspective, Diddy's conduct did nothing to advance the investigation and instead created added obstacles, complicating an already tangled pursuit of the truth. In his view, those actions slowed progress rather than clarified it, deepening the confusion around a case that was already burdened with conflicting accounts, missing clarity, and years of unresolved questions.
Questions have changed slightly, gradually over time. Today, I look at Diddy through a different lens than I might have 10, 15 years ago. There were obviously some early red flags, but it's a complicated thing because we have to be very careful about falsely accusing people or even, making accusations based on nothing more than speculation. And we just haven't seen all the evidence. So I prefer to kind of withhold judgment on some things. I can tell you regarding Diddy back when Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls were murdered. He wasn't exactly cooperative. He didn't do what you would assume a friend or, a manager, so to speak, would do. So from a law enforcement perspective, he was very unhelpful in an area where he ought to have been contributing towards getting some type of justice in those two murder cases. But as we found out in time, he was complicit in one of them, and which would make sense why maybe he didn't cooperate in the other, because the two were, they were just, we always understood that they were somehow interconnected. And so if you're going to cooperate or provide information on one and you're culpable in the other, one thing could lead back to the next. And that's where I think he understood his own vulnerability.
Witnesses described Biggie's attacker as a man wearing a blue tuxedo with a bow tie, yet no arrest or charge ever followed, leaving both cases officially unresolved decades later. While Diddy has faced no legal action, that position is now under sharper examination as new alleged connections continue to surface in discussions around Tupac's death. According to Kirk Burrows, the tension didn't begin at Quad Studios but had been building quietly long before, driven by fragile trust, strong personalities, and unspoken industry rivalries. He says the moment Tupac was attacked inside the building, the damage became instant and irreversible, setting off a chain reaction that permanently reshaped relationships on both sides and ensured hip-hop would never be the same again.
And he was friendly with Big. He saw Little Sean, people like that. They wanted him to come and do a record. That was what was set up at Quad. Biggie knowing Little Sean, they were all there, C's, all of them. It was just going to be a fun night at the studio. Pac showed up. He saw them looking down from the window. His new friends were there. An incident happened in the elevator. It might have been a scary thing like this to send a message. Tupac standing his own ground, just didn't leave it at that. He ended up getting hit, getting shot. The elevator went up. Our people were shocked to see him in that state. He was shocked to see our people looking at him shocked. He thought that they knew something about it. He thought if he was in New York and he was with all the rappers from the East, they must have known what was going to happen. It had to be in the wind, and situations aren't laid out like that. And it was the furthest thing from the truth, but he held that to his heart. And then he went away. A few other things happened, got better, got repaired, went away, went to jail on a rape charge. Once that came down on him, it looked as if the East Coast must have been the worst thing and the worst place for him to have come to. And it looks as if the friends that he had just turned their backs on him. Suge stepped in. And when Suge stepped in, he signed him. He signed him to a napkin at Clinton. And that letter that he sent through Wendy Day, she was definitely a person that was connected and a mediator between most everyone in the hip hop game and had been for a minute, legendary person. She delivered the letter to my office. It started with West Side Up. So it gave an indication of rumblings that we heard in the street with him being shined by Suge was definitely true. He's going to go west when he come back, and he has an issue.
Burroughs says Tupac made it unmistakably clear that the line had been crossed and that the conflict was no longer about music alone, delivering a message that left zero room for interpretation. In Tupac's mind, the situation had escalated into an all-out confrontation with Puffy and Biggie, and his words carried a cold sense of finality. There was no uncertainty, no mixed meaning, only the conviction that what happened at Quad Studios had permanently changed the landscape, transforming a rivalry into something far more serious, irreversible, and impossible to undo.
By the name of Wendy Day, very important woman in the hip-hop world. I think she helped Baby and those guys with Cash Money label, setting that up. She's very influential and instrumental in a lot of success. When I started in the music business, I reached out to her. She had a company called Rap Coalition. She went back and helped rappers from a previous generation get their money straight, their royalties. With that being said, I was like, she's someone I want to know. In knowing her, I had the good fortune of when she was dealing with Tupac during his crises on the East Coast, she went to visit him at Clinton. He wrote a letter, drafted it so that she can bring it to me at the office so that I could know and be able to relate to Sean where we were with him. And the letter, if I remember, it said, West Side Up. And what we had heard was rumblings that Suge came and signed him on a napkin to a contract, and he was going to go west. And all the stuff that happened to him on the East and made it look like people on the East, King or the biggest rappers on the East, or people that he knew should have warned him or protected him against what had happened. And it just is not geographically laid out like that. And a lot of people caught some blame for things that they had nothing to do with. And he took offense, went west, and that started him as a mouthpiece against the East, all right, going at Biggie. And I think it's more than, that's one level of the beef. Then I think there's another level of things that were going on in the streets where things happened in the dividing line between East and West that caused a big rift that led to...
From Burroughs' perspective, that moment was the true ignition point, sending the feud into a downward spiral long before the violence that would later shock the world, marking a shift that could never be undone. At the same time, Chopper has expressed a far sharper view, saying he personally suspects Diddy's involvement based on what he describes as intense personal hostility during that period, a claim he clearly frames as his own opinion rather than established fact. Together, these contrasting viewpoints underscore how that era became a decisive turning point, charged with pressure, mistrust, and tensions that reshaped everything that followed.
You made about how when you would bring up Pac name around Diddy, he'll get mad.
Yes. He hated every bit of it. I remember one time, he was like, who did you grow up listening to? I'm like, Tupac. I ain't mentioned Biggie. That nigga ain't even talked to me for like 4 fucking days after that. Everything with Pac, like, you couldn't say Pac was anything better than Biggie. You can't put them in the same realm or nothing. It was all about Biggie. Nigga, I ain't know no fucking, it was all a dream whole song. I knew a couple words, the first verse maybe, but he made us recite the whole fucking thing. I guess, I don't know. He made us recite that whole fucking thing. And I don't think that Biggie would have gave a if a nigga would have killed about reciting his whole shit. You dig? Like, cause I grew up listening to Biggie too, you know? And I just felt...
That's why Chopper says Diddy's feelings toward Tupac went far beyond rivalry or ego and felt intensely personal, describing an emotion that was steady and deeply rooted rather than driven by competition alone. At the time, he admits he couldn't fully grasp where it came from, only sensing that it ran much deeper than surface-level tension. Looking back years later, Chopper says he came to understand just how powerful and serious that animosity was in his view, a level of hostility he believes helps explain much of what eventually unfolded.